You'll need to start parking somewhere else. If you like the video, please subscribe. That was all he said. No greeting, no explanation, just that sentence, tossed at me like a stone. I remember standing there with my keys still in my hand, the engine ticking as it cooled, the smell of pine and warm oil hanging in the air. The man, Calder, I'd later learn, didn't look angry. He looked certain, like this was already decided and I was the last to know. I've always been a quiet person, not shy, just private. I bought my house for that reason. 10 acres tucked into a fold of hills where the cell signal thins and the nights are dark enough to show stars you forgot existed. One narrow gravel drive connected my place to the county road, winding through a strip of land that wasn't technically mine, but had been used that way longer than I'd been alive. Every morning followed the same rhythm: coffee before sunrise, feed the chickens, walk the property line with my dog Juniper while the fog still hugged the ground. I worked remotely, data analysis for a logistics firm, so my days were quiet, predictable. I liked it that way. Silence felt like a kind of wealth. The first time the driveway was blocked, I thought it was an accident. A truck parked sideways across the gravel, hazard lights blinking. I waited. 10 minutes, 20. Finally, I walked down and knocked on the driver's window. The man inside waved me off without rolling it down, said something I couldn't hear. I stepped back, annoyed, but calm. By the time I got back up the drive, he was gone. The second time, there was no truck, just a stack of timber, neatly arranged like a message. Fresh-cut pine, sap still sticky on the bark. I moved it myself. Then came the cones, then a chain, then a sign nailed to a post. Private access, no trespassing. I called the county. They said they'd look into it. Weeks passed. Calder showed up a month later. Clean boots, crisp jacket, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You've been using our land," he said, like he was stating the weather. "Ours?" I asked. He gestured vaguely toward the hills. "The development company. We're expanding." I told him the driveway predated both of us, that I had an easement. At least, I'd been told I did when I bought the place. He tilted his head. "Funny thing about paperwork," he said. "It can disappear." That was the moment I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was intentional. The blocks became routine. Sometimes it was construction equipment. Sometimes parked cars. Once, a trench dug right across the drive, bright orange tape fluttering like a warning flag. Every time I documented it. Photos, dates, times. I stayed calm. I wrote letters. I called offices. I filed complaints. Nothing changed. Calder's company, Redwood Crest Holdings, had money and friends in the county. Suddenly, permits appeared. Surveyors showed up with maps that didn't match mine. A notice arrived claiming I was trespassing to access my own home. Neighbors I'd waved to for years stopped making eye contact. Rumors started that I was difficult, that I'd refused to sell, that I was holding up progress. One afternoon, a woman from the nearest house drove up and told me, gently, that maybe I should just take the buyout, that fighting developers never ends well. I smiled and thanked her. Inside, something tightened. The isolation was the worst part. Silence used to be my refuge. Now it felt like pressure. Then my uncle died. He'd been a surveyor back when maps were drawn by hand and land disputes were settled with chains and compasses. We weren't close, but he left me something unexpected: a box of records, old deeds, field notes, correspondence. At the bottom was a map. It showed a road. Not the gravel drive I used, but a longer, older route cutting through the hills, connecting to a different county road miles away. A road that had been abandoned on paper, but never legally vacated. I started digging. Turns out, Redwood Crest's permits were rushed. Their survey skipped that road entirely. Worse, they'd falsified access claims to get approval. Calder himself had signed off on them. I installed cameras, quiet ones, recorded every block, every confrontation. Then I let them win. I stopped complaining, stopped clearing the blocks, parked my car miles away, and walked in. Calder got bold, smug. One day he told me they'd start charging me fines for illegal access. I nodded. Inside, I was counting days. They broke ground in spring. Heavy machinery rolled in, trees came down, and with them the old road re-emerged, graded, widened, unmistakable. I filed one last document, a quiet injunction request, attached with evidence, maps, videos, signed affidavits from a retired county engineer my uncle once trained. When the sheriff's department showed up, Calder laughed. Until they read the order. Work stopped. Inspectors arrived. Then state authorities. Turns out blocking an active easement is illegal. Falsifying access documents? Criminal. Calder tried to bluff, tried to threaten, on camera. He was arrested 3 weeks later. Redwood Crest's permits were revoked, fines stacked up, investors fled. The blocks disappeared. I drive my old gravel path again, Juniper's head out the window, dust trailing behind us. The hills are quieter now. Justice didn't roar. It arrived with paperwork and patience. I rebuilt the fence, planted trees where they'd cut. Some mornings I stand at the edge of the drive and listen to the wind move through the leaves. Peace feels earned now. If you've ever been pushed quietly, slowly, made to feel small without anyone raising their voice, I see you. Sometimes the strongest response is waiting, watching, and standing your ground. Have you ever had to do the same?